and a chance to play in a really good high school orchestra, unusually good. And so that made me endure public high school. And then, since I'd been doing nothing but scream about wanting to play the violin and was studying, came time to, of course, go to college, you know, out of high school and off to college or something. And you will be interested in my mother, who had taught high school mathematics. She was a math teacher. When I didn't seem to be too excited about going to college, she said, "You're not college caliber anyway." Now, what she meant, she felt strongly that if you didn't want to go to college, you weren't college caliber. So they allowed me to just study music. My mother took me and my sister to Salzburg. My sister had been taking her junior year abroad in Paris. The idea was Salzburg because I could get some music and she could improve her German because languages were her thing. And it turned me around. The teacher was a teacher at the Mozarteum, a regular teacher there. His name was Theodor in English, Theodor Müller. And when we got there, we went to the Mozarteum because my mother figured that was a smart thing to do to get me a teacher. And he heard me play and he accepted me. And then he said, "Would you consider, this is wrong with this, that's wrong with that, and that's wrong with that, and that's wrong. Would you consider spending the whole summer doing nothing but technique?" And I said, "I certainly would." And that's what I mean, it turned me around. Everything I needed is exactly what he gave me. He gave me exactly what I needed technically. And I needed a lot because Mr. Rockelman, who was my first teacher, was a very good musician, but he was not a good teacher of the instrument. I had to relearn everything in Salzburg, basically, and postures and all so forth and so on. So at the end of that period, I went back still to Mr. Rockelman because there really wasn't anyone else in the city. There was one other teacher that people liked very much, but it was not really a place to necessarily study the violin. And I had an aunt who lived here in New York, my mother's youngest sister, who was in the process of getting a divorce. And the family thought, wouldn't it be nice if I went and stayed with Aunt Anita and kept her company in her woe? You know what I'm talking about, in the middle of getting rid of a husband or not getting rid of him. Maybe she wanted him and he wanted to get rid of her. I didn't really know the story. So I stayed with my Aunt Anita when I first came up here. I had the good luck to meet Louis Persinger, who was very famous. One of my aunts seemed to have run into this person who knew these people on an ocean trip or something. Anyway, she, when I was talking about it, she said, "Oh, so-and-so," this was her friend, "knows all the good teachers in New York. Let me talk to her." And she recommended Louis Persinger and got me an audition. And I played for him and he accepted me. He heard something. I wasn't that super, but evidently heard something. He was a fabulous teacher. He's very, well, one of the sweetest human beings in the world. The worst thing he would ever say was, "Well, fella, maybe you should have practiced that a little more." That was the worst thing he would say. Very positive, very positive, very inspiring. He himself not only played the violin well, he played beautiful piano. As a matter of fact, he was the teacher of Yehudi Menuhin and went on tour with him, accompanying him when he was a child. And I didn't realize it. I met him at that point when I was the same age. I was taken backstage by a cousin of mine who knew some member of the family, and I met Yehudi, same age, but I wasn't playing like Yehudi. was a teacher of Yehudi Menuhin and Roger Ricci, all that crew, who were all my age. Studied privately with Persinger because I was not advanced enough to get into the Juilliard Graduate School where he taught. And because of pulling me up to the level, he got me into the Juilliard Graduate School. The Juilliard Graduate School in those days was very small. We had, I think, a population of about 60 students. It's small. At that time, Juilliard was divided into, it was the Juilliard School and the Juilliard Graduate School. It was an old school, founded by the money of Augustus Juilliard, who was Juilliard Wools. I mean, that's where the money came from to start that school. And it was a wonderful school where it was very hard to get into, it was very small, and it was free.
Really?
Yeah. Free tuition for outstanding students with small classes, and only could you get in on a really difficult audition. And I got lucked in. I worked very hard, and since Persinger taught there, he got me in, so I got to go to the graduate school, Juilliard Graduate School, which of course gave no degrees, and you didn't need any to get into it. The idea was only there for advanced level performance. So I lucked in there. And I had 3 years in the graduate school, individual lesson, and then a lot of chamber music. Chamber music is such a beautiful literature. And anyway, I was very drawn to playing with other people. The literature is beautiful. I liked it. Orchestra, theoretical training. And I was interested in theory because I also had ambitions to be a composer. I had had a lot of theoretical work before that I'd done at the Institute of Musical Art while I was studying privately with Persinger, because I was interested in composition. And I gave that up finally when I discovered something very interesting. If I got started writing something, I couldn't do anything else. It just took my mind over, you know? I had to get this down, I had to get that down, I had to get the other, and I wasn't doing my practicing. And I finally made the decision when I realized what it was doing, either or. And made the decision I was facile in writing music, but not original. It sounded like a lot of other people, you know. That's what I mean by not original. The great composers have their own voice, always. I mean, Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, Tchaikovsky, Sibelius, I mean, all the great ones. They're different. Writing easily doesn't necessarily mean you have your own special voice. You just have a certain facility to put down notes on paper that make sense. But they don't say something different. So when I decided, look, you gotta make up your mind. What are you gonna do? That was my first passion. The violin came first, always. My first love, my ever love. And I was very drawn to chamber music, rather than just playing solo. Again, I didn't feel I had a huge equipment. I blamed my parents a little bit. It would have been better if I'd started at 3. I mean that. It's true, because I see what happens. And that's why Suzuki was so successful. He saw it early. I stayed in a family on Riverside Drive. The mother was a school teacher. She had a son, a little bit older than I, and she took in student boarders who were going to Juilliard because there were no dormitories in those days.